The second season of Squid Game begins exactly where the first ended. Gi-hun, the winner of the games, is at the airport, about to leave for the United States. However, he receives a call from Frontman, warning him that there is nowhere to run and that he will regret his decision. Determined to dismantle the organization behind the deadly games, Gi-hun decides to stay in South Korea. Gi-hun realizes that he is being monitored. Upon investigating, he discovers a small tracking device implanted behind his ear. He removes it immediately and discards it, aware that the organization is always one step ahead. Finally, Mr. Kim and Woo-seok spot the recruiter in a subway station, playing Doc G with a new target. They follow him to a park where he carries out a disturbing experiment. He offers homeless people the choice between a piece of bread or a lottery ticket. Most choose the ticket, looking for a chance to change their lives. In response, the recruiter destroys the remaining loaves of bread, criticizing them for despising what is right in search of illusions. While trying to follow the recruiter, Mr. Kim and Woo-seok are captured by him. They wake up tied to chairs, forced to take part in a deadly game. Rock, paper, and scissors -1. With each round, the loser faces the possibility of death. Mr. Kim ends up being killed during the game, sacrificing himself for Woo-seok, whose fate remains uncertain. At the same time, we discover that Detective Hwang Jun-ho has survived being shot by his brother, Frontman. Now working as a traffic cop, Jun-ho continues his search for the truth about the games. He meets Gi-hun briefly during a traffic blitz, recognizing him as the winner of the previous games. Jun-ho begins to investigate Gi-hun's whereabouts, visiting his old apartment and finding little evidence. Back at the motel where he is staying, Gi-hun finds the recruiter waiting for him. During a tense conversation, the recruiter reveals that he started out as a guard in the games and eventually became a soldier, even killing his own father. He justifies the games as a way of eliminating scum from society. Gi-hun challenges him, calling him a mere pawn of the organizers. The recruiter then proposes a game of Russian roulette between them. They spin the barrel of the revolver and alternate turns. Gi-hun wins, and the recruiter, accepting defeat, takes his own life. After the intense events of the first episode, the second chapter of the season begins with Gi-hun still determined to dismantle the organization behind the deadly games. He meets up with Detective Hwang Jun-ho, who survived being shot by his brother, Frontman. Jun-ho reveals that he is working undercover and shares crucial information with Gi-hun, including the location of a tracking chip that can be implanted in a tooth. Gi-hun agrees to the plan and receives the chip, allowing Jun-ho and his team to monitor his movements. With the help of Woo-seok, the only survivor of the confrontation with the recruiter, Gi-hun discovers an invitation to a Halloween party left by the recruiter before his death. They believe that this party is an opportunity to infiltrate the organization of the games. Woo-seok recruits a team of mercenaries to accompany them, and together they devise a plan to capture Frontman during the event. On the night of the party, Gi-hun and his team infiltrate the venue, a luxurious nightclub full of masked guests. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, with everyone present wearing elaborate costumes. Gi-hun is approached by one of the soldiers dressed in pink, who leads him to a limousine. There, he communicates with Frontman through a loudspeaker. Gi-hun demands that the games be stopped, but Frontman reveals that he is aware of Gi-hun's sabotage plan and challenges him to return to the games as participant. Gi-hun accepts the challenge, and Frontman orders him to be sedated with gas, preparing him to be transported back to the island where the games take place. Meanwhile, Jun-ho and his team try to follow the limousine, but their vehicles are sabotaged, preventing them from continuing the chase. They lose the signal from Gi-hun's tracking chip, leaving them with no clues as to his whereabouts. At the same time, we are introduced to a new character, Kang No-yul, a North Korean defector who works in an amusement park. After witnessing a sick child being rushed to hospital, No-yul decides to quit her job and find a way to help the child. She receives an invitation card to the games without the traditional slap on the face, indicating that she will be recruited as an employee, not a player. No-yul burns the card along with a drawing made by the child, symbolizing her decision to accept the invitation. The series picks up with intensity, bringing back the iconic game Batatinha Frita 1, 2, 3, now with new layers of tension and intriguing characters. Gi-hun wakes up once again in a familiar dormitory, surrounded by hundreds of newcomers. Among them are figures such as ex-rapper Thanos, player 230, Myung-gi, player 333, an ex-YouTuber accused of financial fraud, and Hyun-ju, player 120, a trans woman facing prejudice inside and outside the game. The game Potato Chips 1, 2, 3 returns, but with a twist. The giant Young-hee doll is more sensitive to movement, making the challenge even more deadly. Gi-hun, with his previous experience, tries to warn the newcomers about the dangers, but many ignore him. During the game, an incident involving a bee causes panic, resulting in a chain reaction of deaths. Thanos, under the influence of drugs, pushes other participants to advance, demonstrating his merciless nature. Meanwhile, No Yul, now acting as a sniper, faces a moral dilemma when she recognizes one of the players as the father of a child she previously knew. Despite her internal conflict, she does her duty, highlighting the dehumanization imposed by the gaming system. When the game is over, there are 365 survivors left. The jackpot is revealed, encouraging participants to continue. A vote is held to decide whether the game should continue. Gi-hun tries to persuade the others to give up, but is silenced by the organizers. The vote ends in a tie, and the deciding vote is cast by player 001, who chooses to continue. Surprisingly, he is revealed to be In-ho, the frontman, now participating in disguise to manipulate events from the inside. The episode opens with a somber scene. The bodies of eliminated players are transported in black coffins with pink ribbons, reminiscent of macabre gifts. In the dormitory, Gi-hun is visibly shaken after the vote that decided to continue the games. He is approached by In-ho, disguised as player 001, who tries to win his trust by sharing a moving story about his pregnant and sick wife. In-ho claims that he entered the games to save his family, appealing to Gi-hun's empathy. However, as the audience knows, In-ho is the frontman, manipulating events from the inside. Meanwhile, tensions are rising between the participants. Thanos, player 230, and Nam-gyu intimidate Myung-gi, player 333, a former YouTuber accused of financial fraud. The situation escalates until In-ho intervenes, demonstrating surprising combat skills and earning respect among the players. Gi-hun, believing that the next game will be Dalgona, shares his experience from the previous season, advising the players to choose the triangle shape, which is considered easier. However, to his surprise, the next game is the six-legged pentathlon, a team competition that requires coordination and speed. Players must form teams of 5 with their legs tied together and complete 5 children's minigames: Dedokji, Flying Stone, Gongi, Spinning Top, and Jegi. Each team has 5 minutes to complete all the challenges, otherwise all members are eliminated. Gi-hun forms a team with In-ho, Young-bae, player 390, Dae-ho, player 388, and Jun-hee, player 222, who is pregnant with Myung-gi. Other teams are formed, including one made up of Hyun-ju, player 120, Yong-sik, player 007, his mother Gum-ja, player 149, the shaman Seon-yo, player 044, and another rejected player. The first teams to compete face difficulties. One team fails the Flying Stone game, while another struggles to complete Gongi. Despite their efforts, neither team manages to complete all the challenges within the time limit, resulting in all members being executed. During the game, No Yul, now acting as a sniper, discovers the organ trafficking scheme and refuses to take part. She begins to sabotage the scheme, killing wounded players to prevent their organs from being extracted. This attitude attracts the attention of a masked officer who confronts her about her loyalty. The tension inside the arena reaches extreme levels. The episode opens with the team made up of Gi-hun, In-ho, the frontman in disguise, Young-bae, Dae-ho, and Jun-hee, preparing to face the dangerous six-legged pentathlon. Their coordination is crucial, as their legs are tied together, requiring perfect synchrony to overcome the 5 children's minigames that make up the challenge: Dokji, Flying Stone, Gongi, Spinning Top, and Jegi. The atmosphere in the dormitory is heavy. The players are emotionally and physically exhausted, and the idea of having to team up with people they barely know in order to survive creates conflict and mistrust. Gi-hun tries to keep the group focused and united, taking on a natural leadership role. He encourages everyone to remember that the goal is to get out alive no matter what. However, his optimistic attitude is tested as the pressures mount. At the same time, we follow Hyun-ju's team, which includes Yong-sik, her mother Gum-ja, the shaman Seon-yo, and Young-mi. This team has its own challenges, both because of the dynamics between the members and because of the constant threat of the games. Hyun-ju, a trans woman who faces prejudice inside and outside the arena, shows great strength and resilience, trying to unite the group and protect the most vulnerable. The tension between the team members is palpable, but they know they have to trust each other to survive. The first minigame, Dokji, consists of turning over as many pieces of cardboard on the floor as possible, a seemingly simple game that tests speed and precision. Gi-hun's team starts off well, but soon realizes that the lack of communication and the difficulty of moving because they are tied up limit their efficiency. Next, the Flying Stone game requires even more coordination. Participants must throw stones to hit targets, and any mistake could cost the entire team. The pressure is mounting as the the clock ticks down and the time to complete all 5 challenges is running out. During this phase, the first internal conflicts arise. Thanos, known for his aggressive and reckless behavior, shows himself to be a problem, putting the group's progress at risk. Gi-hun must intervene to prevent the situation from getting out of hand. The Gongi is the third challenge, where players must pick up stones in sequence, a test of agility and coordination that is made more difficult by the restricted movement of their bound legs. Hyunju's team struggles to adjust, especially with the presence of slower or insecure members. The mother figure, Gumja, shows determination, even at her advanced age, bringing an emotional touch to the moment. The fourth game, Spinning Tops, puts players through a task that requires balance and rhythm, spinning tops to score points. This race tests the fine motor control and patience of everyone who is already at their physical and mental limit. The pressure not to fail is enormous, as any mistake could mean death. Finally, the Gi-hun, which consists of holding a paper disc in the air with your feet, closes the pentathlon. This is a game that requires endurance and extreme focus, something that becomes almost impossible for the participants after the effort of the previous challenges. During this game, a tragedy occurs. Young Mai from Hyunju's team succumbs to exhaustion and is eliminated. The scene is powerful, showing the cruelty of the games and the emotional impact on the people trying to survive. Meanwhile, No Yul, the sniper who refused to collaborate with the organ trafficking scheme, is increasingly determined to sabotage the soldiers and protect the players. She faces a constant moral dilemma because she knows that her position is privileged within the organization, but she can't continue to be complicit in the horrors she witnesses. Gi-hun and his group, despite the obstacles, manage to overcome all the minigames, but the emotional cost is high, and the feeling of vulnerability is constant. At the same time, the dynamic between the players deepens. In-ho, disguised as Player 001, subtly manipulates Gi-hun's team, keeping his true identity hidden, while observing and controlling events. At the end of the episode, the survivors gather for another vote on whether to continue the games. Gi-hun, tired and desperate, tries to convince the others to give up, arguing that the violence and suffering are not worth the $1 million prize. However, many players, consumed by despair and greed, choose to continue, showing the psychological and social complexity of the group. The vote is close, and the deciding vote surprises everyone. Player 001 himself, In-ho, decides to continue, reinforcing his manipulative role within the plot. This decision maintains the cruel cycle of games, making it clear that the system that controls the participants is much bigger than they realize. The episode ends with an atmosphere of apprehension, preparing the ground for the next challenges that promise to be even more deadly and complex. Begins just after the dramatic 6-legged pentathlon is finished, with the survivors still recovering from the physical and psychological stress of the previous games. The tension inside the arena is more palpable than ever, and the atmosphere is charged with distrust, fear, and paranoia. Gi-hun is more cautious, aware that the next stage of the game could be even crueler. He tries to strengthen the bonds with his teammates, In-ho, Youngbae, Daeho, and Junhee, but realizes that trust is increasingly rare among the players. In-ho continues to maintain an enigmatic posture, always one step ahead, which fuels Gi-hun's doubts about his real identity and intentions. At the same time, No Yul's story comes to the fore. After refusing to take part in the organ trafficking scheme, she faces the consequences of her defiance. The young sniper is pressured by the masked officers to continue collaborating under threat of severe punishment. However, No Yul shows fierce determination, revealing a rebellious and courageous side that challenges the hierarchy of the organizers. This tension leads to a game of cat and mouse between her and the soldiers, who monitor her every move, fearing that her resistance could jeopardize the entire game system. Meanwhile, inside the arena, the players receive disturbing news. There will be a phase of individual games, but how it will be conducted remains a mystery. The idea that the next challenge will be solitary makes many participants apprehensive, as the dynamic of alliances created so far may be useless in the face of impending isolation. During the episode, we also follow the efforts of Jun-ho, the undercover detective, who struggles to uncover the secrets behind the organization of the games. His investigation leads him to discover new clues about the identity of Frontman and the complexity of the network that sustains the deadly spectacle. Despite the difficulties and disbelief of his police colleagues, Jun-ho doesn't give up and gets closer and closer to the truth, creating an interesting parallel between life inside the arena and the outside world. The narrative also delves into the personal lives of the players, revealing flashbacks that show the reasons that led them to take part in the games. These moments are important for creating empathy with the characters, showing that despite the brutality of the game, each one carries a story of pain, hope, or despair. The episode especially highlights Youngbae and Daeho, revealing their vulnerabilities and strengthening the bond between them and Gi-hun. Another crucial point in the episode is the growing tension between the organizers of the games themselves. We see brief scenes that indicate internal disputes and misgivings about the direction the competition should take, suggesting that the frontman, In-ho, may be facing resistance from within his own team. This extra layer of intrigue adds depth to the plot, plot, showing that the game is driven by interests and powerful conflicts behind the scenes. As the episode progresses, the atmosphere becomes even heavier when the players are summoned to the next challenge. Without much information, they are taken to an isolated area where expectation and fear dominate. The absence of consolidated alliances, accumulated fatigue, and uncertainty about what lies ahead create a tense atmosphere that holds the viewer's attention. The decision to create an individual phase is evidence of a change in strategy by the organizers, who seem to want to intensify the competition and test the psychological limits of the players. This change promises to disrupt what remains of group dynamics, forcing everyone to face their own fears and survival instincts without support. The episode ends with a striking scene. Gi-hun, gazing at the horizon, reflects on everything that has happened and on what is yet to come. His gaze expresses a mixture of determination, fear, and hope, representing the ongoing struggle to survive not only the game, but also his own choices and internal doubts. This episode strikes a perfect balance between action, character development, and suspense building. The combination of the internal tensions, the secrets revealed, and the build-up to the individual matches keeps the pace fast, while at the same time deepening the emotional complexity of the characters and setting the scene for the final episode. Begins with the players receiving instructions for the individual phase, a dramatic turn in the course of the competition. After so many group tests where survival depended on cooperation, now each participant will be on their own, a change that provokes deep fear, distrust, and anxiety. The opening scene shows Gi-hun and his companions being taken to a space that resembles a huge chessboard, with various areas marked out and obstacles scattered around. The organizers don't reveal the full purpose of the challenge, adding to the tension. The only certainty is that everyone will have to fight alone, and that survival will be even more uncertain. Gi-hun feels the weight of responsibility for his allies, especially for Jun-hee, who is pregnant and vulnerable. He tries to stay calm, but the pressure is beginning to take its toll. The relationship between him and In-ho, who still maintains his disguise as player 001, becomes even more strained. Gi-hun realizes that he has to watch out for every move made by the mysterious In-ho, who seems to be orchestrating his own strategies within the game. As the individual challenge begins, the camera follows the trajectory of the different players, showing their tactics and reactions. Young-bae shows courage but is consumed by insecurity, revealing the marks left by the hard life he lived before the games. Yoon-ju, on the other hand, uses his emotional intelligence to try to manipulate opponents and survive, despite facing prejudice and hostility from others. The episode features tense scenes of direct confrontations between players, where alliances are betrayed and the fight for survival becomes a matter of pure instinct. The sense of isolation is masterfully explored, showing how loneliness can be one of the most dangerous weapons in the game. Every move is crucial, and one mistake can cost you your life. At the same time, No Yul continues her resistance within the organization, trying to obtain information that can help the players without putting her life at risk. The tension between her and the masked officers increases, creating a climate of constant threat. Her courage and determination add an extra layer of drama to the plot. Meanwhile, Jun-ho continues his investigation from the outside, facing obstacles and threats to try and uncover the identity of Frontman. His discoveries begin to reveal unexpected connections between the organizers of the games and influential figures in society. This parallel creates an interesting contrast between the chaos of the arena and the real world, adding to the complexity of the narrative. As the competition progresses, the episode also shows the characters' moral dilemmas. Players who used to help each other start acting selfishly to ensure their own survival. Moments of kindness are rare, and the brutality of the games is evident in every decision. At the climax of the episode, a decisive confrontation takes place between Gi-hun and another player, where strategy, physical strength, and intelligence come together in a tense battle that leaves the audience breathless. The outcome of this clash will have a direct impact on the course of the game and the team's survival. The episode ends with a shocking revelation. In-ho, even within the game, exerts a silent control, manipulating results and influencing important decisions. Gi-hun begins to realize that the real challenge lies not only in the games, but in figuring out who he can really trust within that cruel universe. The second season of Squid Game delivers a narrative that is even more complex, intense, and full of twists and turns than the first. Throughout the 7 episodes, we are taken on a deep dive not only into the brutal and inhumane games, but also into the psychology of the characters, the motivations that drive them, and the moral dilemmas they face. One of the great strengths of this season is the balance between action and emotional development. The viewer is invited to follow the journey of Gi-hun and his companions, who, despite the extreme circumstances, reveal fragility, courage, and a constant internal struggle between hope and despair. The tension grows as alliances are tested, trust is broken, and loneliness becomes one of the most dangerous enemies in the arena. In addition, the season deepens the mythology of the series, revealing the behind-the-scenes organization of the games, the internal disputes between the organizers organizers themselves, and the complex connections with the outside world. The introduction of characters like No Ye-will and frontman In-ho adds layers of intrigue and suspense, making the plot much richer and more multifaceted. Another strong point is the constant reflection on human nature, survival, and what people are capable of when put to the test. The series doesn't just show gratuitous violence, it raises questions about power, social inequality, manipulation, and the psychological cost of extreme choices. Visually, the production maintains the high standard, with creative sets and games that, despite the violence, have a careful and symbolic aesthetic, reinforcing the contrast between the apparent innocence of children's games and the brutality of competition. In short, the second season of Squid Game boldly expands the series' universe, offering not only moments of tension and suspense, but also a deep analysis of the human condition in extreme situations. For fans and new viewers alike, it's an experience that challenges and thrills, consolidating the franchise as one of the most relevant and impactful today. And if you've made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video.